The papacy was the most powerful political position in Europe, and to become pope was to become essentially Europe's master.
What the Pope says goes. He is the final arbiter of truth and morality. But if you base your entire philosophy, theology, and authority structure on one person, that works all very well when that person's doing a good job.
Some were very, very good, but others were primarily interested in the political element of it, and they regarded the religious element of it as something to do in their spare time.
The papacy had resided in Avignon, France, for about 70 years, in the so-called Babylonian captivity of the papacy. And there was an attempt to return the papacy to Rome under Pope Gregory XI. Gregory died, and that triggered a papal election. The cardinals elected Urban VI, and it seemed now that the papacy had been restored to Rome and all would be right. But the cardinals soon regretted their decision, and they withdrew from Rome and declared their election invalid. They said they elected Urban under duress, for fear for their life, and that meant they wanted to have a new election. And they elected Robert of Geneva, who then became Clement VII. The problem was that the same College of Cardinals had elected two different men.
Neither of them are morally upstanding human beings. I'm sorry, if that makes people upset. Look, one of the popes, Robert of Geneva, his job before he became Clement VII, he was a professional soldier. He was a mercenary who had massacred entire towns. This is not a good man.
Urban, of course, did not recognize the invalidation of his own election. And this created now a case in which you had two popes, two colleges of cardinals, one in Avignon, one in Rome.
But once there's a disagreement about who's the Pope, suddenly questions of authority are immediately opened up. If the Catholic Church can't even decide who's Pope, then how can they decide how the money should be spent? How can they decide what festivals I should recognize? How can anybody be issuing indulgences, offering forgiveness to people, when you can't even be sure that it's come from the right Pope?
Wycliffe, like many others, saw the schism as yet a further blow to the authority of the papacy as an institution, that it was really weakening its claims to true apostolic authority. But in that regard, he was not alone.
Wycliffe was by no means original in his criticism of the papacy, but he certainly was scripturally grounded in a way that many other papal critics were not.
Wycliffe believed that all of his principles of church reform were ultimately rooted in Scripture. Wycliffe would have seen the Bible ultimately as the blueprint of church reform.
He wanted to reevaluate everything according to the Scriptures. And in fact, his readings of Scriptures led him to think there were only two offices. One was the kind of presbyter, which would include the word for bishop or for priest, and the other was deacon. And so if you've only got deacons and priests, then you don't have bishops or archbishops, and you certainly don't have a pope.